Okay. Turn this off. Do not disturb. All right. Well, welcome to another episode of Christina's Not So Broken Brain. I'm here with the amazing Hilary Lacks. And Hilary, I was wondering if you would mind introducing yourself.
Absolutely. I am Hilary. I am based in Philadelphia. I am an ADHDer with my own business offering different accessible wellness services. So, including wellness coaching and adaptive and inclusive movement, as well as some trainings and professional development here and there. I also teach movement classes and workout classes around Philadelphia too. So definitely have a lot of different irons in the fire at any given time, like many of the other ADHD business owners out there. So I'm very excited to talk about that.
Absolutely. I'm excited to have you here. You and I got connected through TikTok, where I found you, I guess, a year ago. I know I started following you a year ago.
Yeah.
Um,
hmm
and one
Yeah.
of the things I love about your content is the wellness side of it. And ADHD, of course, is what I live and breathe every day, all the time, and you too, because you also have ADHD. But one of the things I love is to talk about adaptive exercise. I had never thought about that. I talk about accommodations a lot with my clients and for myself.
hmm
But if was wondering if you would be up for telling us, like, what does that really mean?
Yes, it is so cool because I think adaptive exercise can be a lot more broad than people might see it as. So, I am a licensed social worker by trade. So, I have a lot of experience working with people with disabilities in clinical settings. And I'm also a movement instructor. So, I teach movement classes and really see the power of movement, how much that can do for people, for myself included, how much it has helped me embrace everything my body can do. And movement services just are not as accessible for people with, not only for people with disabilities, but people who might have other social or sensory accommodations, people who are fat or curvy and might not feel as comfortable in fitness settings, people of color who might not feel as comfortable, people who, just aren't used to that sort of traditional fitness setting or find it unapproachable or uncomfortable. Adaptive movement is all about adapting movement to meet your body's needs, to meet your mind's needs, and to really just center yourself and not other people.
Mm.
So, adaptive movement is great for people with disabilities. I think that's really often like probably the biggest group and the first group that people might think of with adaptive movement. So people who might not find those traditional fitness settings accessible, people who might need more help modifying moves and finding those accommodations in different moves. But it's also really helpful for people who do like going to those traditional fitness settings and might need help figuring out how to adapt moves in those settings to accommodate their own body better. So
Yeah.
when a squat is offered and that isn't feeling great on their knees or on their joints, or they're hyperflexing through their knees, how can
Mm.
they adjust that move to make it work for their own body? Often those accommodations, those modifications aren't offered in movement classes. So it's really important to know how to modify those moves for yourself so that you don't need to take a move that doesn't feel good for your body.
Right. And oftentimes my personal experience going to exercise classes, so I have ADHD and dyslexia, paying attention is hard. Dyslexia
Mhm.
makes it sometimes a little difficult too, with take your right arm, wrap it under, and then move your left arm back. And I was like, wait. And then I would get it backwards.
Mhm.
And they'd be like, literally, this is what happened in a yoga class, is I was getting it backwards. And the instructor said, if you pay attention to what I'm saying, you would not struggle as much.
Oh
So
my
listen to my
god.
words, please.
Oh, no way.
And it was really tough. So I bring that up to say, when you talk about adaptive movement, it's not just about visible disabilities. We talk about that all the time in the
Yes.
neurodiverse space.
Mhm.
And it doesn't mean I'm dumb or not capable of
Mhm.
doing the moves. It means that
Yes.
if this is a brand new space with brand new sensory smells, feels,
Mhm.
touch, sounds, it's going to be a bit of a transition. And it was a new space. It was a brand new
Yes.
instructor. I had never
Mhm.
taken a class in that part of the gym before. Like I didn't even know that
Yeah.
part of the gym existed. Like
Mhm.
I had never taken a class like it,
Yeah.
and that's kind of how that teacher taught. She was like, if you'll pay
Yes.
attention and there was another day where she said, if you would work harder, you would get these positions. So everybody needs to work a little bit harder.
Gosh.
And I honestly, that day I was super proud because A, I got to the class on time. B, I
Mhm.
remembered my clothes to change into. And C,
Yep.
I was there excited to be there.
Yes.
That
You
that
should
was
be
that was
proud
a
for that.
huge,
Mhm. Yep.
yeah, and I was ready to go, and I was so excited, and I was doing modifications based on what I physically could do to be able to breathe and pay attention,
Mhm.
and it wasn't enough.
Yes. Yeah, making group fitness accessible is like definitely, I'd say part of it is about knowing those options that you can take for yourself. And a lot of it's also on the studio and on the instructor and the language that they use. And exactly what you said, when we think about making a space accessible, specifically when we're talking about fitness spaces, we think of accessibility as like, can a person physically access this space? Can they physically enter it? Is there a wheelchair ramp? Are there stairs? Like, are the doorways wide enough? We don't think about like, is the language that the instructor is using making people feel marginalized and like they can't access this space, or that they shouldn't be in this space? And that is equally just as much a part of making these spaces accessible. A lot of people
Yeah.
will use that language like, if you're not doing it this way, then you're doing it the wrong way. If you're not pushing yourself as hard as you can, if you're not trying to change how your body looks and sculpt and burn calories. Like, there are really
Yeah.
specific
Yeah.
expectations for what we have taught movement and exercise should look like and should be. And it's just not accessible to everyone and not helpful for everyone.
So when somebody, say like me, is looking for a gym or a group fitness class, you know where I'm going with this question. It's like, what
Hmm.
do I look for so that I feel welcomed, or maybe things that I can do beforehand that put me in a position where I know what type of accommodations I can make for myself?
Yeah, that is such a good question. I think checking out a studio's social media and website and marketing can be really helpful, and just sort of seeing what language that they're using. Like,
Mm.
often if a place is using language like sculpt, tone,
Mhm.
lincoln, like really like a lot of language that is based around how your body physically looks and like
Mhm.
using exercise to get that physical change, then that may sort of be the vibe of the studio
Yeah.
and what you get
Yeah.
from the classes. I think really, and I would say there is a shift happening where I'm seeing a lot of studios that are putting out more like a body positive, body neutral language, and really trying to shift their studio space to be inclusive.
Yeah.
I think another really great way to figure out if a studio is like a good vibe is, a lot of studios will have trial packages where you can do like an
Um,
unlimited 1 month or unlimited couple of weeks. There's another platform called Class Pass where they
oh yeah.
just have like all these different studios in the city, and you can try different studios with no strings attached, like sign up for a single class, and if you like it, you can go
Mhm.
back. If you don't like it, you don't need to go back. And it's such like a non-committal way to try different types of workouts, and also like just different studios, and see what is a good fit. I think those like types of workout packages are not only great for seeing if a studio like feels accessible and welcoming to you, but they are also great for people with ADHD who want to like hold themselves to exercising and like building a movement practice, but also get really bored do
Yeah.
needing to do the same thing, and like signing up for knowing that they're just going to need to be doing the same thing every day for a
Yeah.
long time. I personally love having some variety in my movement practice, so
Yeah.
holding myself to like the exact same thing for a really long time, I can easily fall off track. So I think those like intro packages are always a really fun thing to try.
Yeah. And I think that is a wonderful tip, especially for people with ADHD, because we have a tendency, yeah, like you said, get bored of it. And it's going to get us to a point where it's like, this is fun until it's not. It's like
Mhm.
foods, right? Where we sit there and we're like, I am hyperfixated on overnight oats right now. And then you wake up and you're
Yes.
like, I can't eat this anymore.
Mhm. Totally.
We want
Yes.
to, and then
Mhm.
we just can't. And so I would
Yes.
imagine I've gotten to that point too with exercise. And
Mhm.
so what I'm hearing you say is thinking about movement and our bodies in a way that honors our own needs and
Yes.
pushes us a little bit enough to keep us interested. And also variety is a big part of that.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
I see
Yeah.
you on TikTok with you have I think a trampoline class, or you
Yep.
have you teach
Yeah.
different types of movement classes. I saw
Mhm.
you do an aerial. Is it an aerial class where you are on the bands?
Yes, I've taken a couple of classes at the Philadelphia Circus School here. It's
That's
just
so cool.
I am
Yeah.
always down to try, like, a new form of movement. It totally
Yeah.
like, exactly what you said about variety, and I literally just made a TikTok on this yesterday, but I think the best way to build a consistent habit is to include variety,
Yeah.
especially because ADHD brains are so motivated by novelty and things that feel new and exciting and special and unique. We just need to build that novelty into our schedule. We can
Mhm.
really think of habit building as so like mundane and
Rigidity.
really
Yeah,
doing like the exact same thing every day. And it just doesn't need to be that way at all. If you want to
absolutely.
build a movement practice, try like doing all different types of movement. And if you find something that sticks and that sort of clicks with your brain, stick with it until it runs its course. And then you just mix it back up again. It really like, it's so easy to be so all or nothing. Like once one type of movement, once one type of wellness, self-care runs its course, that we just like stop and
Mhm.
drop off from there. But I think it's so fun to mix it up and try all these new different things. Um,
Absolutely. One of the
yeah.
things
Mhm.
that a friend of mine opened my eyes to, which I have not jumped in yet because schedule, kiddo, it happens, is they do like adult sports leagues. They only last
Ooh,
like 6 weeks.
fun.
So
Mhm.
short periods, they get drafted onto different teams. So they can go in like groups of 3 or 4, but they play things like wiffle ball, which
Oh,
is
I love
like
that.
not super serious. It's exercise, you're outside. They do softball, they do bowling leagues in the winter. I
Mhm.
live in Western North Carolina where we have 4 seasons. And it's like in the over the summers, they'll have tournaments for outdoor volleyball. So it's like
I
they
love
have
that.
variety, they have community,
Mhm.
they've got
Yes.
and so it's
Yeah, I love that too because so many people think of like the benefits of movement as being like health, burning fit, like burning calories, losing
right.
weight, getting fit. And a lot of the benefits of movement are like having a community, like getting to connect with people in a cool space, getting just out of your house, having a reason to get out of your house, go outside when it's nice out, like try going to a new place, moving your body in a new way. Like there
Yeah.
are so many other benefits to
Mhm.
movement. I love the idea of doing an adult sports league.
Yeah, especially with the novelty and the wanting to be in with community.
Mhm.
And COVID really opened my eyes on because I had that rigidity around the purpose of going to the gym was to be
Mhm.
this person.
Yep.
I know now that that's BS,
Mhm.
this is. And for me, what that means now is like I'm able to hike without completely having to sit down and just take a break, which
Yeah.
is also acceptable, by the way.
Mhm.
I had goals. My goal this year is to run a 5K without having to stop and walk.
Nice.
Right now, I can jog consistently for a mile and a half, and then I have to pause and walk for 0.25, and then I can do another
Mhm.
0.75. Like it's baby steps along the way.
Yeah.
And so, but I do that with other people, and that keeps
Mhm.
me accountable and it keeps me engaged with it because it turns into a
Yes.
physical activity.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. We are just, like, not taught to listen to our bodies. As women, as neurodivergent people, disabled people, we are just taught
Yes.
to not stand out, to abide by the norms, to be
Mhm.
small, to be and move and look like everybody else, and when we, like, center our movement in that, it can do the wrong things,
Yeah.
We really want our movement to be grounded in listening to our own bodies and moving from there. That's why the variety is so nice too, especially with people who are neurodivergent or disabled who have like energy fluctuations and really need to like listen to their energy ebbs and flows. It's so important to just not hold yourself to something that might have been serving you yesterday and is not serving you today. Really giving yourself that space to be flexible.
And I love that because learning to listen to my body, a part of it is for me, I have to stretch 15 to 20 minutes every morning.
Mhm.
My body gets so tight.
Yeah.
And if I don't, like I stretched for about 10 minutes this morning. So I'm feeling it still a little tight in my body. But what happened was that one day I had this idea, very toxic, a long time ago, where if I was good enough at it, I wouldn't have to do as much for it, which is not true.
Mm,
It is not true. Like I know that now, but as a kid, you're kind of told like, well, if it's easy, you must be good at it. And it's like
right.
Michael Phelps didn't get where he is for it to be easy for him.
Mhm.
Like, give me a break.
Yeah.
And so I was playing pickleball one day and I
Mhm.
did not stretch. And oh my God, one of my muscles in my legs just
Ooh.
pivoting too wrong. I don't know what I did, but I ended up having to go to the doctor. It was so bad, but I didn't listen to my body.
Yep.
And I've listened to my body every time before, stretch 15 to 20 minutes before we go play. And it's been great.
Mhm.
And it's been fine. And I'm very thankful for that lesson. And it was also a very humbling lesson because your body will tell you.
Yes.
One of the things that you brought up is energy fluctuations.
Mhm.
And so I would love to talk a little bit more about that, especially highlighting for women how there might be times of the month where our hormones
Mhm.
are different. And so, yeah, you might be able to run a marathon, but on certain times of the month, you might need to balance that. Like in your experience, how does that manifest?
Yeah, I think figuring out how to better understand your body's internal cues is really one of the biggest parts of this. So, checking in with your
Mhm.
body, whether it's like when you get to a workout class in the morning, when you're stretching, and just noticing sort of where you're carrying any tension and stress in your body, what you're holding on to, if you feel like you can sort of push yourself with while still meeting your needs and listening to your body, or if that push might sort of feel like a little bit uncomfortable today.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of ways to this is again why that like the adaptive movement is so important is if you're taking a workout class there's so many ways to just modify it to your current energy level. So the same workout, the same moves can look totally different from one day to the next by changing your range of motion. So how far up and down you're going in a squat, the weight that you're using or the equipment that you're using. You can always drop the props, you can change the pace, you can do low impact versions of the movements, like taking a jump out of a jumping jack or taking a jump out of high knees. So there's so many ways to just adjust the same exercises. It's so nice to know those options so you can play around with them and just choose different options on different days depending on what your body needs.
So what I'm hearing from you as we talk is there's a lot of things that we can do, obviously, to support ourselves.
Mhm.
And it almost sounds like by doing this, you would get to where you want to be in a safer and potentially quicker way because you
Yes.
have the different type of expectations and you're able to hit them versus realize like trying to go and shoot a three-pointer after never ever holding a basketball before.
Mhm.
Just it's just probably not going to happen. Like,
Yeah,
yeah. And
totally.
so, oops, sorry.
Yeah, it also definitely comes with that mindset shift of like knowing and internalizing that it is okay for us to choose these other options
Yeah.
in fitness settings and not be doing the same option as the person next to us or the option that the instructor identified. And it really it's important to find like a setting that embraces that too. I think most of the instructors that I know would really embrace and be excited about so many people like taking modifications in a class. But I also know that people do have experiences, as you were saying, at settings where modifications and like doing your own version of the move isn't embraced. And that is just like not an accessible movement setting. That's like not a setting that you will probably be able to like feel comfortable adjusting your movement, which is a shame that that is like
Mhm.
so common out there. But there are a lot of settings that will excitedly
Right.
welcome your modifications. So definitely don't get discouraged if you come across a place that it feels like they aren't embracing that, because there will be places out there that will welcome it with open arms.
And I want to be mindful of that too, because that person could have been having a bad day too. Like they're human
Mhm.
just like I'm human. And I also remind my clients and myself with ADHD, there are days that not only do I have bad days, but you're going to have moments where you don't have to advocate for yourself. You don't have to
Yeah.
say, I'm doing this because
Mhm. Yep,
you can,
totally.
you have the choice to get up and leave. You could continue
Mhm.
on what you're doing. You can go based on what that instructor does and have a conversation with them another time. Or
Mhm.
you don't need
Totally.
to stand up for yourself immediately in that moment all the time.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Yes, and
so,
I think, like, part of that is really giving ourselves a lot of grace and giving other people grace too, especially,
yeah.
like, I always think in movement settings, as much as some settings, like, might not be accessible and some instructors might use certain language that makes the class feel unapproachable, is we have all grown up in the same world.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
have I mean, it makes sense to think that movement should be this very specific thing, because that's
Yeah.
what we've all been taught, and there are billions of dollars poured into making us think that. Like, it makes sense that you'd want to make your body smaller. It makes sense that you think that you shouldn't take modifications. Like, these things are really like instilled in us forever. Like, we are taught not to listen to our bodies.
Mhm.
um,
It's
so
true.
there are those movement spaces out there that still abide by that, and still that's just sort of the way that it is. And I like get it. That shift really takes a long time, and we need to give other people just as much grace as we give ourselves. We can't force other people to, be somewhere else in that process of self exploration, self discovery, looking at like the systems around them. It's
Yeah.
such an individual journey.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And I want to be very clear too that it's not that I don't believe that Soul Cycle shouldn't be Soul Cycle. It's not that I don't believe that the sculpting class shouldn't be there.
mhm,
I believe that there should be options and there should be the understanding that there can be options.
mhm,
And so that's what for me a lot of it comes down to as well, where it's like, yeah, I would love to have more adaptive movement where like I can have self accommodations and people don't care.
mhm,
And for the people that want to get yelled at when they're doing burpees, go ahead and go outside and do burpees while being yelled at. That's totally fine. I've been
mhm.
there where that was what I needed to, and it worked really well and was super empowering. I'm not that person anymore.
Yep.
And I'm okay with that now. 5 years ago, I would have been like, why can't I do this still? It just is what it is.
Mhm,
So I don't want to crap on those programs where it's like, I have friends where they absolutely love those types of classes. Work
mhm,
harder, let's go. And they're like, yes, I'm pushing it. And I'm sitting here like, I don't know where my left arm is. Like, what is happening? The lights are
mhm.
flashing, like it is too much. And I think there's place for both,
Totally.
is ultimately what it comes down to for me.
Yeah, I know, it is really just giving people those options, like
Yeah.
different strokes for different folks. It's
Yeah.
something different works for everyone.
Absolutely. So I want to pivot a little bit
Mhm.
and hear about your coaching. So I know
Yeah.
you're an instructor, you do adaptive. There's lots of different classes. I do encourage anybody who doesn't follow Hillary on TikTok, follow Hillary on TikTok and Instagram. You're on both. And I'll put those links in the show notes and everything so
Cool.
you can do that. And so when somebody is coaching with you, what are some of the options and ways that you coach?
Yeah. So my coaching centers around helping neurodivergent people find realistic and sustainable approaches to getting things done in their day to day by
Okay.
really enhancing their strengths and their challenges. So sometimes these are more mundane goals like executive dysfunction related, getting things done around the house, staying organized, time management. Sometimes these are bigger goals like how to find a work life balance, how to set a schedule when you're starting your own business. So, really, like the scale of the goals can vary definitely a lot. What we usually do is look at two sort of different pieces to the goals. So, there is the mindset piece. How are we thinking about this? What are our thoughts telling us about this? What's our gut telling us? What
Mm.
are we doing with that information? And then there's that functional piece too. So now that we sort of have that insight, now that we maybe know why something is harder for us, we know why we're putting it off, how do we actually get it done? Where do we sort of go from there? So there's that mindset piece of like understanding what's going on, and then that functional piece of how do we actually put it into place? Which I think is so helpful for neurodivergent people. I know the first time that I did coaching, as opposed to I've done therapy in the past, which is definitely so helpful for
Yes.
mental health. I
Yes.
obviously think
Same.
the world of
Yeah.
therapy.
Yeah.
And coaching was just so new because it was so directive and specific and just helped me like it couldn't make it more clear like what you need to get done and how you need to get it done. And that was invaluable for me as someone with ADHD with figuring out a lot of the stuff I want to do often seems like theoretical, especially with
Mm.
ADHD related challenges and neurodiversity related challenges in general. And being from a social work background, so a more clinical background, we can tend to like clinicize and pathologize a lot of neurodiversity related challenges,
Mm.
like executive dysfunction. So things like time management, task initiation, just having trouble getting things done. Like that's not always a clinical issue. Sometimes it's just like you do not know how to initiate the task. It feels overwhelming. You don't know how to get from point A to point B. It feels like a
Yeah.
mountain to climb. And a lot of that stuff comes down to those functional approaches. Like, how can you approach it differently? How can you frame it a little bit differently in your mind? Can you reward yourself? Can you break it up? Like, there's so many different ways to approach a task. And that's something that I never really had considered before coaching. I was sort of just like, okay, like, well, I know why these things are hard for me. I have ADHD, but like, where do I sort of
Yeah.
go from there? If I can't do these things the way that other people can do them, like where does that leave me? And it leaves you with so many options. You have
Yeah.
no idea. Like we can just get creative, do trial and error. Like this is why I love the variety, not only in movement, but like in every sense. Like just figuring out different fun ways to get things done is like the coaching has been like an invaluable piece for me, and I love getting to share that with other people.
That's awesome. So you yourself have gone through coaching?
Yep, I
Okay.
did a coaching like business program about like probably a year and a half ago now when I first started my business.
Yeah. And I think that's sometimes what people miss is that a lot of great coaches, they have been coached and they see the
Totally.
value. Like I've had a mindset coach. So when you talked about mindset, I was like, yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep,
And it's very transformative. And you realize
totally.
the value in what you're doing. And it's so important to recognize that a lot of the great coaches have gone through the coaching and they see the value, they've invested in it, and they're there to support you.
Oh, yes. I will always I was just thinking about this the other day too. Like, I will always engage with, like, other specialists and professionals to keep just growing my practice. Like, I'm a therapist who sees a therapist, I'm a wellness
Yeah.
coach who worked with a wellness coach, like, a movement instructor who sees a personal trainer. Like,
Yeah.
it is just so invaluable to collaborate, like, even just, like, getting to collaborate with other content creators like you and getting to connect with other people through social media who have, like, such a similar niche. I think it can feel easy to sort of, like, see people in a similar niche to you and want to, like, back away and, like, sort of
I'm the same. I'm like, no, let's talk.
yes, exactly. Like, we can get so much from each other, and even though, like, our we're in this sort of similar niche, we both approach it from these different directions, and, like, with
Yes, absolutely.
your, like, more corporate work and, like, my movement work, those are, like, things that complement each other and, like, work together. It's such a cool balance. I think that, like, really working with people and always being open to learning from other people and reaching out for help, getting that support and
Yeah,
structure and guidance from other people can go such a long way.
absolutely. I completely agree. It is wonderful to be able to connect with creators and professionals and other coaches, and because we're in the same niche and we're not at the same
Mhm.
time. And even if
Yeah.
we are, it is so empowering to hear from other people and to learn from one another, just like you said.
Mhm.
Like, I
Yeah.
don't have the mindset of it, well, if you got a client, that means I don't have one.
Mhm.
That's not the way this world works. Like,
Yep.
there's abundance there, and that goes back to mindset.
Mhm.
That goes back to
Totally.
the mindset work. So when you said you were down for talking today, I was like, "Yes." I was, like,
Yes.
wanting to talk with Hillary. No, I'm
Yes. I
kidding.
love it. I
Guys will
know.
be
I don't even know if we've talked like face to face before. I can't
we
remember. Okay.
haven't. We have ADHD, it'll be fine.
I
It'll
know.
be
I was like, I feel it feels like we have. So
I know, it does feel like that, especially with between TikTok videos and commenting a little back and forth,
yes,
having those
totally.
types of conversations,
Mhm.
you do. And I mean, not to say that you know creators, right? Like, because that's not the case. It does make you feel like you do know someone, especially when they're
Mhm.
there interacting in the comments and they're being vulnerable and they're being real. Because you and I both know that there are things that we show that are curated.
Totally. Mhm.
Like,
Yep.
you see the background of my office, the background that I want you to see. On the other side
I
of the
know, I'm like, "You can't see the floor."
right. On the other side of this computer, I have a coffee table with a dusty printer. I don't know where the cord
Mhm.
is. Books, pictures, all like this high of papers and an old tea.
Yep,
Like,
yep.
yeah.
Mhm.
So it's like
I
we
know.
curate what people want us to see, and at the
It's
same
so true.
time, there's some vulnerability there for a lot of us that are in a niche that, like,
Mhm.
is meant
Yeah.
to let people know that they're not alone.
Yes, totally. I know it's such a hard balance with this niche of, like
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, like, you are gonna curate what's on
Mhm.
your social media, it's like, for
Yes.
better or for worse.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's when people are, like, posting about such a vulnerable thing, it's
Yeah.
even when it seems like everything is sort of coming out, you still gotta take it with a grain of salt. And know that that's
Absolutely.
not everything for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're getting to the part of the episode where I go into rapid fire questions. Before I do that, is there anything else you wanted to talk about or bring up that we've missed?
Hmm. I don't think so. This has been so fun. I like
Good.
just talking. I was so
Yeah.
nervous, but it was so like
Yeah,
comfortable.
it's just meant to be a casual combo, like you're talking with somebody while you're driving in a car after getting coffee and just going about your day.
I
Um,
loved it.
and so my rapid fire questions are, what is your current hyperfixation food? Or safe food, I should say, safe food.
I love pizza Lunchables. Those are like
That is
always
such an accessible
there.
food too.
Yeah, so accessible. It has like decent protein and just like no prep, no cleanup. So I love those. And then I also have a
No prep, no
salad that I
cleanup.
make for lunch basically every day too, which is kale, chicken, goat cheese, avocado, sunflower seeds, and lemon juice. It's the same exact thing every single day for it's been about like
I was gonna say,
probably
I think I saw
almost
you months ago posting
probably
on.
almost a year now
Yeah,
at this point. Yeah, like give or take the 2 months that I was away over the summer. But, like, right when I got home, that was the salad that came back on repeat. It's been a really long time at this point. Sometimes it tastes a little bit like I've been eating it for a year, like, but other times it's just I mean, it's just what I need.
sometimes I
So
have those meals too, and I tell myself, in this moment, I just need some protein.
Mhm.
My focus is nourishment.
Yes.
And I set a timer to have myself eat for 5 minutes. And then I'm like, I forget what I eat. I just needed
Mhm.
nourishment. So that's
Perfect.
great. Okay.
I like that idea.
Yeah. I use timers are a big thing in my life. I'm sure you understand why.
I love a timer. My
Um, ooh, I like that.
Yeah, isn't it nice? The sand timer, it's like 40 minutes.
So I have a visual timer. That's one of the
Mhm.
things I use. I have it in my bedroom. I use it for cleaning, brushing my teeth, being like, okay, I have 15 minutes, and it feels like 15 minutes is so much time.
Yeah.
So I set 15 minutes, to get dressed, brush my teeth, put on makeup, do my hair. 15 minutes is not enough time. But it's like I needed that visual to say like,
Yes.
okay, I got to keep speeding it up. Like I
Mhm.
need to skip this part of my hair care and
Yeah.
just anyway.
Once you start, the time goes by faster.
Exactly.
Just
Exactly.
starting.
Oh, so true. Okay. So latest hyperfixation research item that you have.
I've been very into books recently.
Okay.
Uh,
Oh yeah, you were
so
one of your
I'm
challenges were
reading.
more audiobooks and
Yeah,
reading.
so I my goal was to read 5 books this year and listen to 5 audiobooks, and I am absolutely blowing it out of the water, going to finish it,
Very,
like, probably in February or March even. But, like,
very
when I'm not reading or listening to an audiobook, I am looking on Goodreads, I am deciding what is next, I have, like, a whole running list going.
cool. That's
So, even when
cool.
I'm not reading, like, my brain is often like, "This book is next, and then this book is next, and then this is the audiobook that's next, and then I need to find something for after this," and, like,
Yeah.
so my a lot of my brain power is there right now.
That's really cool though, because it gives
It
you
is,
something to
I'm
look
enjoying
forward
it.
to. It's
Mhm.
novel, and it's
Yep.
like, I'm doing this, and when you're reading, you're in the moment. You're immersed,
Yes.
right?
Oh, I've been loving it. I try to read, like, at least 10 pages before bed every night, like, immediately before bed when I wash up and I, like, get into bed, and then I'll read. And usually, like, I'll read the 10 pages and put it down and then just, like, immediately fall asleep. Like, I don't feel the need to scroll
Mhm.
on my phone like I usually would, and, like, which is fine.
Ah,
I mean, I'm, like,
yeah,
definitely a phone scroller in bed, but
yeah,
when I read, like, I just don't feel the need. My brain's like, "Okay, time for bed." Like, so
yeah.
it's been very nice.
That's nice. So you were engaged recently.
Yes.
So I usually congratulations,
Thank you.
and you're a business owner,
Yes.
and you do all of these other things.
A
So
million things.
how do you support yourself with time management?
Yes, I am a huge planner person. So I
Okay.
use a physical planner, and I know that is like a hit or miss for ADHDers. Yes, okay. I think the biggest tip is just keeping it out next to you. I have mine
Yes,
always just sitting
it is
right
here
next to me open.
all
I
the time.
don't close it. I literally just won't close it. I keep it open. If I need to carry it, I'll fold it, hold it like this. Like it if you close it, it's out of sight, out of mind. Not only like the planner, which you'll forget to use, but all of the tasks that you wrote down on it too. Like I need to have those in my line of vision. So I'm a huge, huge planner person. I also use like an Apple calendar, but
Yeah,
I literally like I need to write everything down. Otherwise, it is like just not a real thing that's happening.
gotcha. I mean, because that's a lot to manage
Yes.
in general, and so that's good. Okay, so what are some favorite fidgets that you have?
Ooh,
Or are
I
you
love
a fidget
these,
person?
like, I don't know. I love these acupuncture rings. These
Ooh,
ones are so nice. I have trichotillomania, which is a hair pulling disorder, and
okay.
these I think are so nice for people who have any like body focused repetitive
Picking.
behaviors. Like, yeah, it's so
Yeah.
nice because I feel like with a lot of other fidgets, I have like all these ones ready to go. With
Yeah.
this one, you're like holding it in your hand and you get to like move it around. But with the acupuncture rings, like it also gives you more sensory input because it's spiky and like pressing into your skin. So it's not only that you get to do something with your hands, but it also is like giving you more stimulus than just getting to move something around like a fidget spinner.
Yeah.
So I love these.
That's awesome. And is that something that you can just, it doesn't make any noise. And that's one of the things I
Doesn't
love
make
about stuff
any
like that.
noise. They're
Yeah.
so cheap. You can get them in a pack of like 20 on Amazon for like $3. So I love to just like keep these in like all of my different pockets and just like have
Mhm.
them to fidget with, keep them in the car, keep them at my desk.
Yeah. Would you send me a link to that so I can
Yes,
show notes? That's
totally.
super cool. Because a lot of mine, I've got this one that's quiet. Somebody just sent
Okay.
me this one, a client did, and it's just it almost looks like the finger traps,
Yeah,
but it has a marble in it. And I was like, this is
nice.
not going to be fun. And then I found myself going like this,
I
and it's
like that. The
quiet, which is
texture
good.
looks nice too.
And then do what?
The texture looks
It
nice.
is. It's not too abrasive.
Yeah.
And I was using not gack. I'm showing my
Oh,
mom
like the slime.
slime.
Mhm.
At first I was like, I don't want to use this, but my kid was like, try it, mom. And then I was using it so much my hand started to hurt.
Yeah.
And then this one has sounds when I snap
Ooh.
and unsnap, but it's pretty quiet when I have
Yeah,
it
I
in
couldn't
my
hear it.
hand. Yeah. So it's not too bad, but I like the idea of having something just like right here that I can
Mhm.
just, because
Yep.
it does help.
Yes.
Okay. So last rapid fire question. If you, before I get to the last rapid fire, when were you diagnosed or were you self-diagnosed?
Self-diagnosed, I discovered about 2 years ago, like, right when I
Okay.
left my full-time job and started my business.
Okay, cool, cool. What are some of the things that you would tell yourself 10 years ago, not knowing you had ADHD in order to, advice would you give?
Yeah. Just, like, you'll figure it out, first of all. When I was, oh, 16 years old, I was in high school. I was really struggling. I was like not doing any of my work. I was skipping a lot of class and like I wanted to be successful and I really was motivated to be successful. I wanted to do a good job in school and I just like couldn't for whatever reason. And I would want to tell myself like you're not a bad person, you're not a bad kid, like you will figure it out, you're going to be successful. Like these things
Yeah.
aren't a moral failing. Like it's just something that like you need to like play around with. It's trial and error. Once I got to college and could like sort of it gives you so much more flexibility with the time you're doing things and how you're approaching things and I was like, "Wait, I actually like I can figure this out." Like, so yeah, I would love to tell my 16-year-old self that like you're going to make it. Like you got this. You have all of these strengths and even though they don't come into play in high school in your like math class or science class, history class, like you are going to find what you are great at.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Hilary, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and talking about wellness and adaptive movement and your experience as well having ADHD. It's been wonderful.
Yes, thanks for joining me. That was awesome.